The research process consists of a sequence of actions or steps necessary to carry out research and the desired progression effectively. The following order relating to various steps provides a useful procedural instruction regarding the research process. There are two types of research problems, like those which relate to states of nature, meaning they denote their hypothetical conditions of what the lives of people might have been like before societies came into existence, and those which relate to relationships between different variables. Initially, the researcher must recognize the problem he or she wants to study, that is, he or she must decide the general area of interest or part of the subject matter that requires inquiry. At the onset, the problem may be discussed broadly and then the doubts, if any, relating to the problem resolved. Then the probability of a particular clarification must be considered before working on the formulation of the problem. Two steps are involved in formulating the research problem: understanding the problem systematically and reshaping the same into significant terms from an analytical point of view. One of the best approaches to understand the problem is to discuss it with contemporaries or with those having some knowledge in the related matter. Research follows a logical sequence of interconnected steps designed to produce reliable knowledge and insights. The first step is problem identification, to recognize and define the research problem clearly. The second step is literature review, to survey existing knowledge and identify gaps. Hypothesis formulation, to develop testable predictions based on evidence. And research design, to select appropriate methodology and structure. There are three stages of problem formulation. The first stage is understanding stage, to establish objectives, outcomes, and initial issues to guide design selection. The second stage is selection stage, to outline alternatives and conduct comparative assessment for decision making. The third stage, redefining stage, to evaluate problem statements and select the best formulation based on criteria. Once identified, the problem must be refined through systematic planning that specifies objectives, reviews context, examines problem nature, defines variable relationships, and evaluates alternative approaches. Specify objectives. It's a good idea to keep 2 or 3 clear, manageable, achievable goals to avoid clutter. Review context. Understand available resources, constraints, and feasibility through literature analysis. Define variables, identify relationships, and determine which variables are critical to solving the problem. Once the research problem is identified, the researcher must study all the available literature to get herself or himself familiar with the selected problem. He or she may review 2 types of literature. First is the conceptual literature, which is related to the concepts and theories, and second, the empirical literature, which consists of previous studies similar to the proposed research problem. The researcher should undertake a vast literature survey concerned with the problem. For this, the abstracting and indexing journals and published or unpublished bibliographies are the first place where the researcher can get the information or knowledge. Academic journals or conference proceedings or government reports and books are the other sources the researcher can refer to for study. After this, the researcher revises the problem into analytical or operational terms, that is, putting the problem in as specific terms as possible. This assignment of formulating or defining a research problem is an essential step in the entire research process. The primary reason for conducting research is to produce new knowledge and to disseminate, to make it available to everyone. When approaching a research project, it is imperative to understand the current state of knowledge in the chosen subject, as it is a waste of time spending months producing knowledge that is already available. Therefore, the first step in planning a research project is a literature review. That is, to go through all the available information sources in order to track the latest knowledge and to assess it for relevance, quality, and gaps. This will indicate where additional research is required. This section explains where to find the necessary information, how to analyze it, and present it so that it is used to devise a solid basis for the research project. After the literature survey, the researcher should make a hypothesis or a working hypothesis. A hypothesis assists in converting the research problem and objective into a comprehensive explanation or prediction of the expected results of the study. It follows from the research problem, literature review, and conceptual framework. A working hypothesis, however, is a guess made to test the logical or empirical outcome of the research. Since the hypothesis is open to testing, therefore it should be specific and limited to the scope of the research. It sharpens the researcher's thinking and focuses on the essential facts of the problem. Hypothesis formulation could involve the following approaches: discussions with colleagues and experts about the research problem, its source, cause, and the objectives in search of a solution. Assessment of data and records. Evaluation of similar previous studies and the personal investigation involves the original field survey. Thus, any hypothesis formulated as a result of prior thinking about the subject, assessment of the available data and material, including related previous studies, the formulation of a working hypothesis is an essential step in any research process. The choice of design depends on the nature of the research problem. Common designs include historical, descriptive, exploratory, explanatory, correlation, comparative, experimental, simulation, evaluation, action, and ethnological approaches. Historical design is a systematic evaluation of past events using documented sources and archaeological evidence. Descriptive design involves observation-based data collection to establish norms and predict outcomes under similar circumstances. Exploratory design involves investigation of unclear problems to gain understanding and formulate better research procedures. Experimental design isolates and controls conditions, manipulates independent variables, observes effects on dependent variables. Simulation represents system behavior through models, enabling testing of what-if scenarios in artificial environments. Action research is a cyclical process combining action and research through critical reflection to address specific problems. In summary, the research design is a plan of action. Once the problem gets selected for research, there is a need to constitute a plan of study and should focus on the following components. They are need for study, review of the previous study, problem statement, hypothesis formulation, operational definition.